Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time to release the bees.
No, not the bees! Not the bees! Ah!
Okay, settle down, it's just one bee actually, and in this case it's TransCraft Beetle, which is of course a homage to that other movie about bees that we all loved. You know the one.
You like jazz?
Nope, not that one either, it's this one.
Look at you go. Hey, you got some moves.
Ah, that's the stuff. Now, before we begin, I should mention that today's review is brought to you by TF Source, so I'll throw a link to their site in the video description below. I'd also be very grateful if you could leave me a like for this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also in the description is a link to my Patreon, where in exchange for your support, you can get access to a ton of perks, including exclusive galleries and early access to videos such as this. Finally, there's a link to my Redbubble, where you can pick up a huge range of different designs, including loads of my photos across all kinds of different merch. I'm uploading new ideas all the time, so be sure to check it out and treat yourself. Anyway, here is TransCraft Beetle in his box, which sets the tone nicely with its stripy yellow design, outlined artwork of the character in question, and even the presence of some song lyrics that will definitely cause this particular tune to be stuck in your head all day. Anyway, the back of the box is much of the same, although of course it's the contents that we're really here to see, isn't it? In this case, it all comes concealed in a specifically made padded interior, which means that it's really a very simple unboxing process on the whole. Now, included in the box are several accessories, including an alternate head representing the character's battle mask, which looks really rather good. Also a set of blade weapons, which can be pegged onto the forearms, a sizable blaster weapon, which can be installed on the end of the arm as well, and finally a set of fold-out instructions, which I gotta say, make me a little bit nervous. But don't worry, we'll get to all of that shortly. For now, let's assess that robot mode, and it has to be said that TransCraft have done an amazing job with this one. I was immediately struck by just how accurate to the screen this toy is as soon as I took it out of the box, but even after a thorough examination all over the body, I remain equally as impressed. It's without a doubt the most faithful transforming Bumblebee toy out there on the market right now. That's true no matter which angle you look at this thing, with every inch of it, including the back, exuding attention to detail versus the character's on-screen appearance. It really is a marvel in that regard, and holds up to an amazing amount of scrutiny. Beyond that though, it's just a handsome thing to look at in its own right, with good proportions, nice detailing, beautiful moulded features, and a really striking finish. That's mostly thanks to the weathered look, which is applied to great effect across the majority of the robot mode body, and arguably makes the toy look a lot more premium than it otherwise would. It's really very eye-catching, and is the final dose of accuracy needed to make this already impressive design feel like it popped right off the screen. There are some sections where the weathering isn't quite universally applied, mind, in particular the sides of the abdomen, his back, and the sides of his feet, but given that's a result of this being a transforming toy and how spectacular it looks in spite of that, I think it's easily forgivable. Elsewhere, it's equally remarkable, with the smaller paint applications being flawlessly applied and really helping to seal the deal in terms of how fantastically presented this toy is. I'm also a big fan of how much of the figure looks like it was made out of metal, despite being almost exclusively plastic, and even touches such as the moulded translucent headlight boobs really stand out for how well executed and easy on the eye they are. Then there's the head sculpt, which honestly is about as perfect as you could hope for, in that it both looks fantastic under its own steam, and again, it's a cracking representation of the character's on-screen likeness. I'm especially taken by those painted blue eyes, which, in the absence of a light-up gimmick, do a remarkable job at making this toy seem alive. You also have a set of posable antennae which can be adjusted to give Bumblebee any number of different looks, although the head sculpt has a slight frown to it, suggesting he's not in the mood for malarkey. Should you prefer, then you can swap it out for the battle mask alternative, simply by popping the head off at the neck. Now, I will clarify that's easier said than done, but the battle mask looks equally good once it's applied, with yet more attractive paint, some nice silver detailing, gorgeous translucent blue eyes, and another set of posable antennae. As with the other head design, it's also a dead ringer for the equivalent feature seen in the film itself. In terms of other gimmicks, you have the dual blades, which can be easily installed on either arm. They simply peg into a slot on the wrist, fitting very securely and making this bee feel like he has a rather deadly pair of stingers. Again, it's another gimmick which does a great job at replicating the on-screen look. Similarly, there's that blaster accessory, which also pegs in over the arm, although here you'll need to move the hand out of the way slightly to accommodate it. Because of how the hand remains in place, this one definitely looks better from a top view than it does from underneath, but it's still a really good solution on the whole, and I appreciate the simplicity involved with it too, as it allows you to recreate the signature movie arm cannon with no real fuss or fiddliness. All told, it's a decent bag of tricks and one which allows this release to feel like a fairly comprehensive representation of the character from the film. He's also very well articulated, starting with a decent range of movement at the head and neck, above what you get on most toys this size. The shoulders are pretty great too, as although you get a fairly standard double joint by default, you can also unclip those front chest panels to allow for a significantly greater range from another point just behind it, even imitating a butterfly hinge of sorts and really adding to the posability overall. In fact, there's a bit of additional movement to be had from those wheels on his back, which can be moved about a bit to your satisfaction once you unclip the chest, and the door wings can be fanned out a touch too, should you wish. Then there's a bicep swivel and double jointed elbows, meaning the arms are pretty kitted out overall. The hands have a ball joint and a hinge at the wrist, whilst the fingers are articulated in 2 points despite being all moulded together, and the thumb has 2 points of articulation as well. You then get a waist swivel but no ab crunch, followed by a very decent forward range of motion at the hips, which is really something to see. The hips can also be rotated from side to side, although you will find that some of the movement is impeded by moulded robot parts, so best be careful. The knees will bend to 90 degrees and feature a neat little slider mechanism for moving the knee pads along with them. Whilst there's another fantastic range of motion to be had in the ankles, again you want to be careful with clearances on some of the folded up car mode bits inside the legs here. In fact, my only real gripe is that some of the parts of the legs like to pop apart a little bit too easily during posing in my experience, with those front leg panels being the main offender. Similarly, the chest could do with tabbing together a bit better than maybe it does, although really all of this is a small complaint and doesn't belie what is otherwise a remarkably fun toy to pick up and pose, especially with how expressive it looks. Again, TransCraft have done a fine job here overall, in my opinion. In fact, if you didn't know this was an unofficial toy, I honestly think that you wouldn't be able to guess, as the attention to detail, the finish, and not to mention the way it replicates the character from the film all feel absolutely spot on. And dare I say that it ends up looking a bit more impressive than the actual movie Masterpiece effort from a few years back as a result. To see just how wonderfully it brings Bumblebee to life, just check it out versus the recent officially licensed 3.0 effort, for example, which is a product brought to life using the actual CGI model from the film itself. It's incredible to see just what an amazing job TransCraft have done here overall, as whilst there are elements that vary a smidge, you have to admit it's pretty remarkable considering this is a transforming toy too. It's also fun to see how it shapes up next to other Masterpiece style Bumblebees, including the likes of the MPM3 2007 version and the two G1 MP toys we've had thus far. I'll equally be looking forward to seeing it next to the new MPM Bumblebee movie Optimus Prime when I finally get that in hand, but for now he looks great next to the other 2007 figures from that range. Overall then, it's a really strong start for TransCraft Beetle, but let's see how we get on with the transformation to vehicle mode. Well, that's transformation done, and it has to be said, I'm really impressed. That is some exceptionally clever engineering. For starters, let's talk about how surprising the whole thing is, with everything ending up in the exact opposite place to where you would expect. I am in particular referring to how the bonnet-style chest of the robot mode ends up underneath the rear half of the car, whilst the actual bonnet of the car is made up of the bits folded out from the feet of the robot mode. It's entirely unprecedented, and for that reason alone, it's a conversion that I look forward to doing again just to really wrap my head around how it all works. If anything, the whole toy sort of turns itself inside out during transformation, with the previously weathered finish from his humanoid form now mostly tucked away underneath, and a mostly very clean appearance having replaced it for the vehicle form. Remarkable stuff indeed. And yes, it's a bit panel heavy at times, particularly in the final throws of the whole thing, but it still comes together really nicely by the end result, and I think mostly clips together pretty solidly too. I often say this about complicated transformations like this, but for my part I really quite enjoy them so long as everything slots together fluidly and with purpose, and by and large that's what you get with this figure. As for the result, well look, I think it does a pretty good job on the whole, looking essentially as it should in order to really capture the vehicle mode from the film. Again, it's a bit panel-tastic in places, meaning that you do note various seams and lines all over the body that do kind of take a spot of willing disbelief to try and ignore, just as there are areas such as the sides of the car where you'll see a number of obvious joints breaking up the otherwise uniform yellow finish, along with the clear presence of some kibble poking out from underneath the thing too. But on the whole, I honestly do think that TransCraft have done a bang-up job with this one, considering everything it goes through in order to get from the robot mode to this. There's also some very nice detailing on areas such as the wheels, and again with the smaller paint applications. Although I would say that the weathered finish on the sides of the car looks very uneven across some of the panels, and on the whole the vehicle mode can't quite claim to be as spectacularly finished as the robot alternative, nor indeed the official MPM toy when it comes to the vehicular forms at least. As a total package though, there's an amazing amount to like, and I really am sat here marvelling at just what a good job TransCraft have done with this design on the whole. I said earlier that this is sure to be the most screen accurate transforming Bumblebee movie toy on the market right now, and I stand by that assertion. It's a very wholehearted toot. Now, as I mentioned, you'll find a link to TF Source's site in the video description below, so be sure to check them out for all your Transformers and third-party needs. There are also links to both my Patreon and my Redbubble store, so be sure to take a look at those if you want to support me in exchange for some awesome perks and merch. Finally, I'd love it if you could drop me a like for today's video, and don't forget to let me know your thoughts on TransCraft Beetle as well. Do you like what you see, or not so sure? Otherwise, that's it from me, so thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day. TTFN.